Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Hard Count podcast. And today we've got a very special guest, Between the Hashes. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime. Today we're going to be doing a mock draft for fantasy football. We know a lot of you guys have got leagues coming up, drafts that you really want to prepare for. So we're here to do a draft, see how things unfold. Anyways, let's get right into the draft. All right. So Tyler, you're on the board at number 4, and I've got the 9th pick. So let's see. What are you thinking, Tyler?
Yeah, so at number 4 right here, this is a full PPR draft, but Alvin Kamara is one of my favorite players this year. Last year, it came out that he was on he had, I think it was like he tore something in his knee,
Yep.
and he was
Yep.
kind of not fully healthy, and he still put up
Exactly.
decent numbers. So I'm gonna draft Kamara right here. I think he's gonna have a real rebound this year.
Definitely one of my favorite picks as well. And I really like Kamara. And now it's my pick at number 9. And there's a couple guys that I'm looking at here, and they are the top. There's 4 guys that I'm looking at here: Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler. I'm gonna go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire just because in that Kansas City Chiefs offense, I say this a lot, but good offense to me means good fantasy player, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be getting a lot of those targets out of the backfield. And in full PPR leagues, he's hard to pass up on, in my opinion. So I got to take Helaire there. And
For
one
sure.
thing that I love to do in drafts this year, because it's so top heavy running back wise, is go 2 running backs. My favorite running back left on the board is Kenyon Drake in that Arizona offense, because we saw at the end of the last year, he was a workhorse at the end for Arizona. So I'm taking Kenyon Drake because in PPR, he's especially valuable as well. He's a good receiving back.
Yeah, that's where I go here too. But I don't love my running backs
Yeah.
on the board,
Yep.
and I see one of my favorite wide receivers this year. I have him as my third overall wide receiver, Chris Godwin. So
Wow.
I'm gonna draft him right here.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, Chris Godwin, very solid pick. Um, I'm
Plays
a
in the
little more
slot,
concerned. Yep, I'm a
and
little more
Tom Brady
concerned.
loves his slot
Yeah,
receivers.
definitely. I'm a little more concerned about Mike Evans, but but I'm not concerned about Chris Godwin at all. So
Yeah. So right here,
got a
I'm
couple
kind of in that
options.
position. Yeah. So I couple of running backs on the board. We Todd Gurley's there,
Yeah.
Le'Veon
Oh,
Bell, Leonard Fournette, and this is why it's really good to take 2 running backs to start because I'm not a fan of any of those running backs.
yeah.
Um, but I'm not exactly sure any of them are gonna come back to me. So I think I might have to take one right here,
Yeah. I
or
think
else I
that's the
might
right
get
move.
stuck. Yeah. So
If
I'm
yeah,
I'm kind of torn with Todd Gurley this year. I think he has some potential, but the injuries and that knee just concern
hmm
me.
absolutely. Yep.
I kind of like Leonard Fournette, so I think I'm gonna go with Leonard Fournette right here. I know there's a lot of question marks
Yep.
surrounding him, but I
He.
think he's just
Yep.
gonna get all those carries on the goal line, and when you get
Definitely.
carries, you're guaranteed points.
Yep. I totally agree. I think that was a good pick. Leonard Fournette, even though he's further down the draft board, you can't just look at the draft board. Obviously, Gurley was the number 1 guy on the board, but I think Fournette is going to have a great year. Not as valuable in PPR, but still going to get a ton of volume for the Jaguars. And here is where I am going to take a wide receiver. I like to come out with a wide receiver and 2 running backs at the end of 3 rounds. And one of my favorite guys, Allen Robinson, I have him as my wide receiver 8, is on the board. Got the 3rd most targets in the league last year, only behind Julio Jones and Michael Thomas. So I got to take Allen Robinson.
I like that pick a lot. I think a lot of people overlook him. He's nothing special. People don't see that much in him, but he's just very consistent. And in PPR, he's gonna get you those receptions.
Definitely, definitely. So here for me at this 4th round pick, I think I like to weigh my options a little bit, and I can either go another receiver or I can try and stack up on a 3rd running back and really make my running backs very solid. But here, a guy that I was maybe going to consider drafting, Jonathan Taylor, went off the board. So now I'm looking at probably a wide receiver. I don't mind Melvin Gordon, but I like Calvin Ridley a lot. I think he has potential to be last year's Chris Godwin. So I'm going to take Calvin Ridley. I expect him to do very well in that Atlanta offense that's so pass heavy.
I like that pick a lot. And then I right now I'm kind of debating. So I've got Melvin Gordon still on the board. I
Hmm.
don't love him that much this year.
Yeah,
And right now, wide receiver, the two people that I'm going to decide between here, DK Metcalf and DJ Chark.
hmm,
For me, even though, I already drafted Fournette, but I think DJ Chark is very underrated. He could be a
I agree.
potential top 10 wide receiver this year. He's really the only good wide receiver in that offense. So I'm
100%
gonna
agree.
go with Chark right here.
Yep.
It might be a little early, but I think he's
No,
out of
I think
everyone
it's a great
there, he's
pick.
the best value.
Definitely one of my favorite sleeper wide receiver, or not sleeper wide receivers, but guys that you can get at their current ADPs. So,
Yeah.
um,
So coming back up, we still have Tyler Lockett there.
yep,
There's a couple decent wide receivers, and then going over to running back, Kareem Hunt's there. He's someone who I think is very overlooked. Dave Montgomery is one of my favorite running backs, but because of that injury, I'm not really sure if I
yep,
want to take him this early.
yeah,
For me, I think right here, I want to make sure that I still get one of those decent running backs because if I have a feeling if I don't get running back here, I'm going to be stuck with kind of the bottom
yep,
tier running backs. So right here, I'm
absolutely.
gonna I'm gonna go with Kareem Hunt.
I love that pick. Yeah, that's probably who I would have went with if I was you because I think Kareem Hunt he has potential to. I'm not thinking he's going to overtake Nick Chubb, but I think he's going to get a lot of touches in that Browns offense that I think is going to definitely be improved from last year. And so this is where I'm going to probably take another running back because I want to, just as you said, Tyler, this is after this round, the running backs drop off heavily. You've got Cam Akers, David Montgomery, and Ronald Jones. And those guys I'm deciding between. And I think I'm going to end up taking um, this is very tough. And this is something that I have thought about a lot. Do I take Ronald Jones or David Montgomery? Because I like Ronald Jones a lot, but David Montgomery to me, after that injury, is much better than Ronald Jones is. So I'm going to end up taking David Montgomery, hoping that he comes back healthy and still going to be a workhorse for the Bears. He's the only real guy that's going to get carries there. So that's why I've got to pick David Montgomery. Also because I have those two running backs early in the rounds that I feel very comfortable with. Hopefully I can pick up some wide receivers here that I can feel comfortable playing in the flex while David Montgomery is injured and then he comes back healthy. But
Yeah, I like that pick a lot.
thank you. Yeah. So now
I, I think I think. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
no, you're good.
I think with Montgomery, like just being in he's going even if he's not super efficient like he was last year, he's gonna get 20 plus touches a game. So you
Absolutely.
can never go wrong in the fifth round.
Absolutely. And just as I said, I'm going to try and take a wide receiver, another wide receiver here that I can play in that flex comfortably week to week while David Montgomery is not healthy. And that is going to be one of my favorite guys this year, one of my Ravens, Marquise Brown. I like Marquise Brown a lot. He's the sole real outside threat for the Ravens, and he was so efficient on the targets that he got last year, and I think he's going to get even more this year as the Ravens are going to come out throwing the ball quite a bit.
Yeah, Marquise Brown is someone who has a lot of potential to be. I wouldn't say what Chris Godwin was last year, but to
Yeah,
definitely break out, put on a lot of
definitely.
muscle in the offseason. And in that high-powered Ravens offense, there's always a lot of potential.
Absolutely.
So for my pick right here, I'm probably going to look at the wide receivers. Stephon Diggs on the board, AJ Green's there. Someone a little farther down the board though that I like a lot this year is Tyler Boyd. I
I
think
love that.
he's
Yep,
I think he's being really overlooked this year. There's a
absolutely.
lot of wide receivers around him, but
Yep.
he's got a much better quarterback than he had now that he has Joe Burrow. So I think he's a lot of potential.
I love that pick. One of my, if you watch my must draft wide receivers, he was one of those guys. Love that pick.
And then coming around here in round 7, I think I'm actually going to go with the top running back ranked on the board right here, J.K. Dobbins. He's not going to be getting a ton of carries to start. I know Mark Ingram's the top running back in Baltimore, but if
Hmm.
anything were to happen to Ingram, Dobbins would be like a top 10 running back right away. So I think he has a lot of potential. He's my RB4, so I don't have to start him right away. So I can keep him on the bench until I need him. So I think that's where I'm going to go right here.
I like that pick a lot. That was J.K. Dobbins was the guy that I was looking at if I was you as well. I think by the end of the year he could be the top running back in the offense. I think there's definitely potential for that to happen, and it's one of the most run heavy offenses in history. So a lot of opportunity there for carries, even splitting the backfield. But here's where I'm going to take my tight end, and that is Hayden Hurst in Atlanta. He's going to get a lot of those last season. This season, Atlanta has 250 vacated targets, and I think a lot of them are going to go to Hayden Hurst. He's going to replace Austin Hooper's role last year, who was a pretty solid fantasy tight end. So that's why I've got Hayden Hurst there. And so here's where I'm going to try to take one more running back off the board, and it's tough for me because I don't love any of these options. And I think I'm going to end up going with Zach Moss. Not my favorite pick. I don't feel too good about it. But Zach Moss, he's going to replace Frank Gore's role last year. I think he's going to get more and more carries throughout the year. He's a guy that's going to get the carries in the red zone because the Bills did not trust Singletary last year in the red zone. So I'm drafting Zach Moss there.
Going back to Hayden Hurst there, I like him a lot this year, but I know on the board still there you had Tyler Higbee was still there. Also, you view Hurst as a little better than him this year.
Yeah, I view them as pretty equal. I think Hayden Hurst, I'm counting a little more week in, week out. I think Tyler Higbee is a guy that I think, again, very similar, but here I'm going with Hurst because I think those vacated targets in Atlanta. And yes, the Rams got rid of Robert Woods, but I still think that Hurst is going to have a slightly better year, but I could go either way with those two.
And here for my pick, I'm going to be going with Marvin Jones. Some other wide receivers around him, though, are Deebo Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, and then I don't like any of the running backs on the board, Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman. For me, with Marvin Jones, he's being drafted this late, and the numbers from last year were very similar to Kenny Golladay, so he's being slept on by a lot of people.
Yep,
and then definitely. For my next pick, there's a running back there's a quarterback on the border here that I love a lot, and I'm not exactly sure if he's going to fall back to me, so I'm going to go right here with Josh Allen.
Okay.
I think I know a lot of people see that he's not like the best quarterback in the NFL, but when it comes to fantasy, like those rushing yards, and he's got Stephon Diggs, so I think he has the potential to break out.
I totally agree. I like Josh Allen a lot. The dual threats, huge for fantasy quarterbacks last year. 7 of the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks were dual threat quarterbacks, so Josh Allen definitely fits that mold. So good pick there from you. And I'm going to go quarterback as well. One of my guys this year, Carson Wentz. I really like Carson Wentz. I think he's got those receivers back. Actually, he's got a pretty solid receiving core. I know Alshon Jeffrey's down, but I still like Carson Wentz in that offense. And then here, I'm going to try and take another wide receiver. I've only got 3 right now. I like all 3 of them, but I still want to stock up on some receivers. And I'm choosing between 2 guys here, and I'm actually going to go with Jalen Reagor. I see McCole Hardman on the board, but Jalen Reagor, he's in training camp reports have shown that, or said that he is going to come out as probably the number 1 receiver in that offense, especially with Alshon Jeffrey down. So, and that he's going to be heavily utilized this year, and I think it's going to be an Eagles offense that's very successful. So I like Jalen Reagor a lot.
I like both those picks a lot. I think Wentz he performed last year without that strong wide receiving core. So I think this year, now that he has stronger receivers, he definitely has a lot of potential. And then Reagor is a rookie who's going to be one of those top receivers in the Eagles offense right away. So I think those are both really good picks.
Thank you. Yeah.
So here for me, I don't like I still need to fill in my tight end spot, but I think I can get better value in the next couple of rounds.
I would agree.
For me right here, I'm probably don't love any of the running backs. I'll probably get a running back on the way back. So I'm going to target another wide receiver. Darius Slayton is a possibility. He's in an offense that I think will improve a lot this year. Mm-hmm. But I also like Anthony Miller and Justin Jefferson a lot here.
Yep.
I think I'm actually going to go with Anthony Miller right here. Last year, at the end of the year, I know it was like the last 5 or 6 weeks, he was actually performing in like the top 20 in PPR.
Oh wow.
He was I don't know if that's exactly what it was, but he
Yeah.
was
Yeah. I
very high up, and many people didn't even see that.
yeah.
Um,
I agree. That's a very good pick. I like that Anthony Miller pick. Same thing that goes for Allen Robinson. Yes, not the most accurate, but pretty good. All right.
yeah. And then coming up on my next pick right here, I want to get another running back to back up um, Kamara and Fournette right here.
Yep.
Don't love any of the options. Keyshawn Vaughn is one of those people are really high on to start, and he's kind of fallen down the list.
Yeah.
Someone else who I think has a lot of potential to break out, the Chargers backup running back, so that's Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly.
Yep. I can see that.
So I think right here, I want to make sure that for me, when you draft your bench spots, you want someone who has some potential to break out.
Yep. Definitely upside. Yep.
So I think right here, I'm actually going to go with Joshua Kelly.
Okay. I like that pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the Chargers offense that's probably going to run a lot anyway, and he seems to be pulling away with the RB2 spot for the Chargers. So I think he will gain more carries as the year goes on.
I like that pick. I agree. And so I'm probably going to end up going running back here as well. If we look at it's tough to pass. Now that I look at it, I think I'm actually going to end up going with wide receiver here. I like Allen Lazard of the Packers. I think he is a big sleeper this year for me because in that offense, he is the number 2 guy, and it's an offense that likes to pass with Aaron Rodgers down the field. And so I'm going with Allen Lazard there. And then now I'm going to have to take a running back, and there's a bunch of guys that I don't feel too good about, but that's what you get here in the later rounds. And so I'm looking at Keyshawn Vaughn, who I'm not a huge fan of this year. I think Ronald Jones is going to get majority of the carries, and that's why I like Ronald Jones a little bit more. Duke Johnson, not a big fan of, and so I'm actually looking at Nyheim Hines and Benny Snell, and I think I'm going to go with. I think actually no. I'm not gonna go down there yet. I'm gonna take. I just said it, but I'm taking Keyshawn Vaughn. I'm not a huge fan of that pick. I'm not a fan of any of the running backs on the board. But I think if Ronald Jones goes down for any reason or carries get split among that backfield, Keyshawn Vaughn is the number 2 guy, and it's a good offense. So definitely some upside there for Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah, and I think I like Lazard. From what I've heard, he seems to be pulling away with the wide receiver 2 spot in Green Bay. And when the running backs you're looking at, I think Benny Snell has some potential because of Connor's injury history.
Yep.
But I think Vaughn, Vaughn could end up getting some carries in there with Ronald Jones, but I don't think he's going to put up crazy numbers this year.
I agree, and that's why I wasn't a big fan of any of those guys. And the thing, Benny Snell, even if Connor goes down, there's Anthony McFarland in that backfield also, so it's tough.
Yeah. So for me, I need to fill in my tight end spot here. People on the board, we got Austin Hooper, TJ Hawkinson, Mike Gesicki, Jonnu Smith. I don't like Hooper this year. I think for me, I'm going to look between Gesicki and Jonnu Smith. I think right here I'm going to go with Gesicki. Just because 2 wide receivers for the Dolphins opted out this year, so there's a lot of vacated targets from them. I think it was Albert Wilson and Allen Hurns, if I'm correct.
I think that's correct.
So hopefully he can develop a relationship with Tua if Tua plays this year. But Fitzpatrick seems to pass a lot in the last year. He passed a lot, so I think Gesicki has some potential, especially this late.
Yep.
And then for
Absolutely.
me, now it's just down to kickers and defense. You know, for drafts, I always wait for the last two picks to fill these two spots in.
Yep.
Um, I'm not a crazy fan of any of the defenses left, so I'm just gonna take the top kicker on the board, and Harrison Bucker, who's in the high powered Chiefs offense, and he was, I think he was the top scoring kicker last year. He was very
I
consistent. I had
I
him on
believe
one of
so.
my fantasy teams.
Yep. Definitely. I agree. Those were good picks. I am going to end up passing on a defense. I do not take a defense. I stream off the waiver wire because week to week you can get good defenses off the board. But in and so I'm going to go with a wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk, who I think has a lot of potential to be pretty solid in that 49ers offense. But yeah, and then I'm going to go with one more guy, and it's probably going to be a kicker, and I'm going to go with Jake Elliott because Eagles, I think they're going to score a lot more this year, and then I have had Jake Elliott for the past couple of years. He's been pretty consistent. So
Yeah, I think that's actually a good choice with Ayuk. I think he is, especially with Deebo Samuel being hurt, and there's just a
absolutely,
lot of
yep,
questions in San Francisco. And then with not drafting the defense, I I don't usually play that way, but I definitely like see the upside in that, especially
yeah,
since once you get down this far, the defense is kind of unpredictable.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's like
So yeah, I I might actually do the same here because I don't like any of these defenses that much, and I'm sure one of them will be left on the waiver wire.
yeah,
So for me, I'm probably gonna go. There's a couple wide receivers that I like here. I think Hunter Renfrow is kind of a underrated wide receiver, and I
yep,
think Michael Pittman could be a breakout
definitely,
candidate as along with Paris Campbell, someone else in the
yep,
Colts
I agree.
offense. And then our running back, I like Benny Snell. So right here, I'm probably going to end up going. I like the wide receivers a little better, so I think I'm actually going to end up going with Paris Campbell right here.
I like that pick a lot. Yeah. But like for example, I would at the defense I'd take like a Philadelphia or something who's got an easy schedule for the first 3 weeks of the season, then I'd stream the defense. But yeah, so that's the end of the mock draft. You want to go over our teams really quickly?
Yeah,
All right. So on my roster, quarterback, I've got Carson Wentz, and I'll pick up backup quarterback off the waiver wires. There's still a good amount left at the end of the drafts. And then at running back, I've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kenyon Drake, David Montgomery, Zach Moss, Keyshawn Vaughn. Wide receiver, I've got Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown, Jalen Rager, Alan Lazard, and Brandon Ayuk. And at tight end, I've got Hayden Hurst. And kicker, I've got Jake Elliott. What about you, Tyler?
yeah. So at my quarterback spot, I have Josh Allen. My running backs are Alvin Kamara, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, J.K. Dobbins, Joshua Kelly, and wide receivers, I have Chris Godwin, DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, Marvin Jones, Anthony Miller, and Paris Campbell. For my tight end, I have Mike Gesicki. My kicker is Harrison Butker, and then my defense I will pick up off the waiver wire.
Yep.
And going off of what Spencer said, the quarterback for the bye week, yeah, that's just like you pick up that week. You usually
Yep.
can find a good streamer. It's not worth wasting a spot on your bench.
Absolutely. But yeah, so thank you so much, Tyler, for doing the mock draft with me. Um, I will leave a channel to Tyler's channel between Tyler's Spotify between the hashes in the description if you'd like to check that out. So thanks so much for doing that with me, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime. So yeah, thanks so much for listening. Until next time, peace.